Welcome, everybody, to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Taylor Rockwell. I am very excited to be here with you all today, even though I am ill, and hopefully my voice holds up because I get to talk MLS playoffs, and that is a real thing, Joe Lowry. Last night I considered texting you and Jeff to say, I don't know if I can do it today, and then I thought, I watched these playoffs games. They were good. I want to talk about them. So here we are.
Yeah, baby, fighting through that. Well, usually it's CCL fever. I guess now CCC fever. Now it's MLS playoff fever. There's fever. Somewhere there's fever, and we're going to pretend it's good and not bad and that you feel like crap.
Jeff Reuter, and any names you would like to throw to MLS playoff fever / viral illness?
Yeah, you're doing your Michael Jordan or Jordan Morris flu game right now, right? Like this is you really locking in and saying the moment calls for it and I can't miss it. And it's inspirational to a generation of young podcast hosts aspiring who are listening to this wanting to fill what you do.
Thank you, Jeff. I truly think about that sometimes about like if I tried to explain a quote-unquote hardship of doing this job, I cannot tell you how quickly people's eyes would glaze over and they would be disinterested, rightfully so. 100%. Like I was talking to a dad at pickup at my daughter's school the other day who's a firefighter, and he was just telling me about the day he'd had, and I was like, yeah, man, sometimes like audition won't save properly, and it's just a whole thing. Not quite the same. Not quite the same burden is all I'm saying, and slowly realizing when it comes to podcasting.
Yeah, it's not the same. Yours is much harder. Everybody knows.
Joe gets it.
Right.
Thank you, Joe.
Right.
My computer might have overheated. I thought I might need to grab a fire extinguisher, Like, that's much scarier.
I was trying to reach for my water and I bumped my microphone. I'm worried the whole episode is going to be cooked now for that one sound effect, right?
There are real perils to this.
Mm-hmm. The number of times I have in my notes, Mike hit stop moving, is alarming because I do try to track those on my end and don't always remember to remove them. So listeners, apologies if I don't remember to remove them. I hit my mic deliberately on that one.
Nice.
Gentlemen, let's talk playoffs. We've got 4 games to get through. We're going to go chronological order. Was this Vancouver versus LAFC? Was this the most dramatic tie of the round, given the way some of the other ones played out? Do you all feel like this had the most talking points and kind of drama to it?
I told you it'd be the game of the postseason, guys.
Jeff was right.
I told you. It was just delightful. It was, again, 2 of the most, momentum harnessing teams of the second half of the season who hadn't met since they got their, big X factor. And both were available. Both were in really good fitness. Both played at least 75 minutes. It was a great game. It was a fantastic game. Vancouver, the atmospheres that they've been creating throughout this run as the city is really hopping in to support them has been so encouraging to see. And I think that I left that saying if Vancouver isn't a soccer city after that game, I don't know if it'll ever happen. You hear it in the stands. You hear how the fans are cheering on crossbars like they're their own, like it's Alphonso Davies, basically. That level of love and admiration for just these, fine minutiae of what... It's fantastic. It was a great atmosphere, made the game even better. Lots of drama. Son Heung-min, I don't worry about the penalty miss whatsoever because the shootout doesn't happen if he doesn't score twice, right? So I think that he's kind of absolved. The penalty that I'm more befuddled by is Mark Delgado trying a penalty Panenka seemingly for the first time in his life at a moment where it matters most. And
that was a tough moment for maybe Mark Delgado should actually be in the USMNT pool stock.
Mine too.
It did tank a little bit after that. This game
just because of a bad Panenka?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't think that at all. I do think Delgado is very good, and is I don't know why he hasn't been in Pacha's MLS revolution. I think he is very much good enough to be. He's not so good that it needs to happen, but I do like Mark Delgado a lot. I think it was a savvy pickup by LAFC. This game, to go back to the atmosphere for a second, which is not typically where I focus my attention, this was a hashtag Joe has soccer FOMO sort of evening on Saturday. Watching this game, I was texting with a friend of mine, and I've never been to BC Place. I've never been to Vancouver as an adult anyway. And I would love to go. I will not be at MLS Cup this year. I will not be able to make it. And so the only way that Vancouver hosts MLS Cup is if they win, and they did in this game against LAFC, obviously. If they win again against, now we know, San Diego, away in San Diego, and if NYC FC beat Miami. And before that, NYC FC had to beat Philly. So the only hosting possibility was Vancouver meets NYC FC. Before all these games kick off, I'm thinking, well, I really want to go to Vancouver. I hope that this doesn't happen. I hope that I don't miss out on Vancouver. So I'm texting a friend of mine, and he's like, you got to go. You got to be able to go. I'm like, I can't go. And I'm joking with him, well, there's no way. There's no way that Vancouver are going to make it all the way through and that NYCFC are going to beat Philly. Because I said on this show last week, 1 week ago today, that the most lopsided game by far was going to be Philadelphia NYC FC. We'll get to that game later, but Joe's a big, dumb, stupid idiot, and maybe Vancouver are going to host this thing, and that atmosphere looked amazing. 53,000, something along those lines. It was a delightful game, a delightful atmosphere. I'm depressed inside that I have not experienced this and that I won't.
Look at Joe forcing his friend into the mix just so that he can get ahead of Taylor and me making fun of him for that Philly pick. Like two segments before we could have even gotten to it ourselves.
That's called
impressive.
A veteran move on my front.
That's
Get out in front,
defense.
Do damage control from the start. That's where we're at.
I think the bigger revelation, Joe, who are these? You have other friends? You talk to other people?
Graham.
Up,
Graham. Texted Graham. Graham.
Okay.
My fault. Should have said.
Also, Joe called himself a big, dumb, stupid idiot. I think you're 0 for 4 there. I'm not sure any of those are accurate. Joe, you're tall. I don't think of you as a big guy. Certainly
average.
not dumb.
Exceedingly average in almost every way.
Vancouver have not been average. Let's get back to that one. What was the key, do you all feel like, in this game, aside from some questionable penalties? How did they go about getting this result?
I mean, we talked, when we previewed this game a little bit, we talked about how dangerous LAFC can be on the break, which we know is Steve Cherundolo's big thing. And more than that, it's also this roster's big thing. It's Son's big thing. It's Bouanga's big thing. Vancouver did not concede a single shot in the entire first half of this game. They were up 2-0 before they even conceded a shot. The thing that set them apart in this match was the ironclad grip they had on this game while also creating chances out of that structure. They could throw some numbers forward, but Kubas and Berhalter and Laborda and Priso and Blackman's back now, he's gone again because he got sent off in this game, so he won't play at San Diego. That group, mixed with the incredible effort, I thought, from the front line, Emmanuel Sabi was on his horse in this game. He was tracking back to deal with Bouanga and Son in the aftermath of Vancouver set pieces when LAFC would try to start a break. Vancouver is so bought in. They have such a clear identity, and their ability to control games, I think, is the best in MLS. Now, San Diego do it, but they do it in a different way. They're not as good in defensive transition. Vancouver aren't as possession-heavy as San Diego, but that they are a little bit more towards the center of that scale makes them such a difficult team to beat, and I thought they executed their game plan phenomenally well in the first half. They did basically everything right. They climbed out to a 2-0 lead. It was only a sheer moment of absurd brilliance from probably the second best player in MLS, where Yoi Takeoka didn't even, there was no point, Jeff, to him standing in the goal, Takeoka. There was literally nothing he could have done to save that shot. I mean, maybe if he just literally stood there right at that post and jumped straight up. There was no way he was going to save that shot. Vancouver win this game pretty comfortably, if not for Son's existence. And that moment, Vancouver checked every single box for me in this game. I'm endlessly impressed with them, Jeff.
And I think that the other thing that really impresses me, and you talk about how bought in they are, and I couldn't agree more, because I think it's not just the players who are influencing the game directly in the same way. It's not just your Blackmans and your Berhalters and your Mullers who are really locked in, and then the other guys are kind of trying to find their place to make moments. And you see this a lot in MLS. I think it's a league that players want to entertain in, given the game model that it often encourages. But I think that you look at the Emmanuel Sabi and Ali Ahmed and Jaden Nelson, right? These are all players who are really thriving in these sort of supplemental roles, doing these really necessary off-ball movement things that we talk about in glowing terms about, Paul Rothrock with Seattle and others, right? Where you need to have those players who are really intelligent and willing to do that tireless work to create the space either on the other side of the field or for teammates in close proximity. We'll talk about this again in Miami, I promise. But I think that when you look at it with Vancouver, it really manifests in a very fun way. That is a system that is catered towards control, but then also decisive kind of flips of the switch, and then really pushing it forward to the next phase. And then either you decide, do you commit to that attacking sequence, or is that kind of, you've moved the line, so to speak, possession is advancing a little bit, and then you do it back all over again, which just, either way, it's a really proactive approach. And I think that when you look at coming up against LAFC, playoff LAFC over the last 4 years has not been as proactive. It has not been as decisive. They made a very direct change once the red card happens, and I think that was maybe the most entertaining half hour of LAFC playoff soccer I've maybe seen in, since 22 probably. It looked a little bit different once Blackman was sent off, but LAFC, I mean, Steve Cherundolo left the league doing what he loves, right? Unfortunately, it's a case where he was playing a pretty negative game for a while, setting it up with basically a 3-4-3, but also doing it in a way where passing lanes were pretty Son doesn't get on the ball maybe as much as you would like.
Correct.
In the first hour of the game or so. Bouanga struggles to make an impact and is taking his shot, doing his thing where he shoots at volume, but not necessarily from the angles that are going to be as effective for him. There wasn't even really this player is missing and that's why this is happening. It's just this is just how he wanted to set it up, and I think it was working for Vancouver. Like Joe said, they were winning very comfortably until they weren't, and that has a lot to do with the individual ability of Seung-Min Min.
A very random question that isn't about this game, but it's kind of about this game, so I'm going for it. So you're LAFC, you're now eliminated. Steve Cherundolo is gone. You're looking around at managers, and you wonder to yourself, what's Poch going to do after that next World Cup? If you called his camp right now, what percentage chance would there have to be of him taking over that gig for you to wait until after the World Cup?
So
if he says, I'm 50% chance I would do that. Is that enough if you're LAFC? Do you wait, knowing that you could get that name to come in and coach your club? Or do you have to make a managerial signing sooner?
Give me a strong 75%.
Okay.
So it's weird. Jeff, you give your percentage, and I want to add something to my answer.
I don't even know if I have. I think it's in theory 10, but I don't know if it would be worth it all the same. But I think if there's a 10% chance Poch is I'll hold off the Premier League suitors for another year and let's give this a go in LA. You've got to be tempted if you're LAFC for sure.
So you just kind of roll the dice on a half season, hoping that he agrees.
Joe, you go ahead. This is fun. I like.
I'm into it. I probably agree.
What your premise is reminding me of, Taylor, and I think this is a relevant question because what's next for LAFC is the talking point for them right now because Steve Cherundolo is gone. What this reminds me of is Eric Ramsey coming into Minnesota United after their season had already started. Right after he doesn't have a preseason to come and build into this team. Minnesota were fine to wait because I think they recognize that managers matter a little bit less than we all think they do, right? Than we all talk about them. So I believe that, truly, although at the same time we can celebrate managers when they do a great job, which I'm about to do with Jesper Sorensen in just a second when we get there. When LAFC think about their next manager, who it sounds like is sure going to be Marc Dos Santos, Steve Cherundolo assistant, Tom Bogert's already reported this, others have as well, that he's probably going to just be elevated into Cherundolo's role. When we think about LAFC managers and what makes LAFC special, I think it is that John Thornton's talent ID is in the top 1% in MLS, right? Thornton has consistently built amazing rosters since LAFC existed, right? He has done such a good job and deserves a ton of credit for surrounding himself with good people, for making smart decisions on personnel, and for enabling other smart people to do their jobs. He's done a great job. I think hiring a Poch maybe compromises that. I think hiring a Poch, someone who wants more control, is not just Thornton doesn't want to do that in the first place. I think that's part of this. And also, I'm not sure it would be good to do in the first place. So I'm sort of torn. I gave 75% because I do think Poch is a good coach, but I'm not sure that that's the right move for LAFC. I think they have had success, and Thornton's had success working with big personalities before. Bob Bradley is the one I'm thinking of. But at that stage, Thornton wasn't the proven X factor that he is now. And so it does make me think LAFC, even though Dos Santos is not the flashiest hire, I think he'll do a fine job. And the question for him is going to be, can he give his team 10% more effectiveness when they do have the ball? Can he make this team a little bit more willing to control the ball in games against good teams? LAFC were still a heavy possession team this year because other teams forced them to be because they were so afraid of LAFC attacking on the break. But can LAFC be a team that doesn't go into a game, a huge game, the biggest game of their regular season, the biggest game of their MLS season, against Vancouver, and just does nothing for 45 minutes? That cannot happen for a team with this much talent. I think that's going to be Dos Santos or whoever takes over. That's going to be their biggest priority. But it does make me think about what has made LAFC special. And I think it is very much, clearly, I think it is Thornton and the front office's ability to identify and sign huge players helped by the club and the market and all that stuff. But I think that has been the X factor more than hiring a big-name coach who could maybe in a weird roundabout way kind of detract from some of that.
That is an amazing answer, Joe. I love that analysis. That's a great point. All right. Galaxy then? Galaxy for Poch?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. All right,
cool.
I feel better about that.
Yes. Should we throw some love to Jesper Sorensen then while we're talking coaches?
Jeff, do you think people feel silly for not voting for Sorensen? You voted for Sorensen, didn't you? I mean,
I did.
You did too,
you're
a man
right?
of culture. I did too. So Bradley Cornell wins
so.
Coach of the Year. I don't know how you watched this game. I don't know how you watched Vancouver, which maybe this exposes that people didn't watch Vancouver, right? I don't know how he didn't win Coach of the Year with the roster that he had. And yes, they've added pieces. Of course they have. And the front office does deserve some credit. They built a good squad. But Sorensen's impact has been so impressive to me. Jeff, watching the fluidity that they have in possession out of a very sound structure, watching Seb Berhalter kind of drift forward out of the double pivot into the left half space, watching him get on the ball and do some tricks and flicks with Muller on that side and Ahmed on that side, Laborda on that side. I mean, it feels to me like Sorensen has pressed every single button that he needed to press at the exact moment he needed to press it for a team that has been devastatingly injured for the second half of this season, and Vancouver still look like they might be the best team standing. Like, I'm so impressed, man. I'm so impressed.
And he's been doing that all year, right? And it hasn't just been during games. It's also been like getting over the CCC frustration and heartbreak.
Yeah,
it's been getting through Ryan Gould's sudden absence. It's been integrating Thomas Muller into the system without other players feeling kind of superseded or anything like that. I did decide to look up the list of winners of MLS Coach of the Year, and I can totally tell you why he didn't win. It's because they kick off in Pacific time zone. If you look, every year since 2017, only one Western Conference coach has won Coach of the Year. 8 of the last 9 winners of Coach of the Year have come from the Eastern Conference. That one, Bob Bradley, LAFC, they set a points record. Everyone's heard of Bob Bradley. So I don't even count that.
Jeff, can you read the list? Can you read the list? And I'm just going to go right or wrong because obviously my vote is the only one that matters. Go ahead.
From 2017.
Yeah, that's fine.
2017 onward. You've got Greg Vanney at Toronto.
Sure.
They won the treble that year. Tata Martino with Atlanta.
Okay.
Everyone loves that team. Bob Bradley, LAFC. Makes sense. 2020, Jim Curtin, Philly.
Fine. Weird year.
21, Bruce Arena, New England.
Yeah, sure. Wrong, but that's fine.
22, Jim Curtin, Philly.
Should have been Nancy in 2022 at Montreal.
With Montreal, yep.
Very much so.
23, Pat the Bat Noonan.
Should have been
Cincinnati Fighting Garys.
Should have been Wilfred Nancy in 2023.
Yep. 24, Wilfred Nancy.
Hey,
Columbus
we got
Crew.
there.
And yet, I think last year we're all like, are we sure it was Nancy this year?
No, it's true.
Right? Like,
I mean, the Coach of the Year stuff is just so messed up. It's always messed up. People can't see past. They can't see past the points totals. And you're also right, Jeff. I think there is a legitimate, we don't watch the West Coast teams play, which I'm sympathetic to, right? I mean, time zones are what they are. But, man, I think he's done a phenomenal job. And I'm curious what you think of this, Jeff. I've tossed out this take before. I don't think it's going to happen. LAFC should just hire Sorensen away from Vancouver. I think we saw Columbus do it with Nancy and Montreal. If they want to do the thing where you hire a coach with a clear pattern that could make this team better, I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe that Sorensen could transform this team and make them so scary next year. And he can also do it without requiring a huge chunk of control in player acquisitions, things like that. That, to me, just go do what Columbus did with Nancy. You don't need to overthink this. You don't need to underthink it. I think Sorensen would be the perfect hire for LAFC. But I also don't wish that on Vancouver. I'm not trying to ruin their fun. Keep Sorensen for as long as you can, man, because I think he is special. I think this Vancouver team is special. I'm in love.
I will say, though, that there are some coaches that just work better in that sort of like, you know, kind of like that we're going to get a team to perform at the absolute apex of its potential with a bunch of players that are bought in rather than I'm going to a super team and the expectation is titles every year I fail, right? And so like I kind of wonder if there's something that is freeing for Sorensen about being able to work at a club like Vancouver where the precedent is something that is a little bit more... the ceiling is lower, right? Like as everyone was talking about while this game was progressing, because this is still based off of Vancouver beating LAFC. And in a way, by the way, isn't a 2-2 draw with a penalty win kind of a spiritual 3-2 win if you really think about it?
Yes.
In terms of my oddly specific prediction, I digress.
I'm glad to give it to you. We go to shootout. I mean, I think Joe, did you get your point as well?
I have no recollection of what I said for any of my VSPs last week.
Counter-attacking goal for LAFC in fewer than 10 seconds from the time they gained possession.
Definitely did not get that goal. No, did not.
No, okay. Well then, yeah, I'm giving Jeff a half point. Jeff wins for that round.
I'll take
Good
a half
job,
point.
Jeff.
That's fair.
Deserved.
That's fair. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We're going to take a look at more VSPs and the results when we get to the remaining games. We're going to get to that after a short break. Back soon. Welcome back to the Total Soccer Show. During the break, Jeff painfully but helpfully confirmed that Joe does not get the prediction point. Joe, how are you feeling so far?
I'm devastated, man. Obviously, I remember that we did those VSPs. I wrote them down. My heart was set on winning that one in particular that I definitely remembered. I'm going to need a second, so maybe go to Jeff first on this while I cry.
Jeff, who do you think was more disappointed? Joe to not get that point or Luis Suarez to not start the game versus FC Cincinnati?
You know, I can see Joe's eyes right now.
Yeah.
I can tell the fire in his belly about all of this. I can tell this segment. He's about to tell me that this game finished with all 22 players and that I was wrong. And he's
snap.
ready. He's coming in hot, and I get it. Suarez, this is like, we're into the official part of the playoffs where the sub story is like, is this the place and the situation where Suarez, Alba, Busquets might have their final game of their career? And so, like, there is just something kind of interesting about being a late game ice it. We're rotating out players who did really well, and we just got to bring on Luis Suarez for his, like, swan song sort of thing. And look, they were never going to lose this game against Cincinnati. Cincinnati, like, we were talking about this before the show. I'm really excited to get into Cincinnati here and where it went wrong for them, because I think there were several points throughout the year where it looked like, they were the front runner for the Shield about 20 games in, if I remember right, or at least neck and neck with Philadelphia and a couple of other teams at that point. But yeah, Suarez, I'm sure he'll have his day. I'm sure that I would have to think he'll be more involved in the next round. I really do.
We thought that last time. I believe Joe's VSP for that one was Luis Suarez to score a goal. Alas, Joe. Alas.
Yeah. 0 for 2. I didn't remember that I said that, but that does sound like something I would say, because I still believe in Luis Suarez. Like, I think he's still a very productive MLS player, because he has been. It was a big call by Javier Mascherano, and I love that he made it. He gets hired because he's Messi's friend, right? He's another one of the Barca bros, and so he gets this job after never having coached a club team. And I want to give the dude some credit. We've poked a lot of fun at Miami. We've poked a lot of fun at Javier Mascherano this year. He made a big call. A big call that I think was probably not the easiest one for him to make personally, as someone who played a ton of games alongside Luis Suarez at Barcelona. This was a call, though, that he made because he thought it was going to help the team. He came out and talked pregame to Taylor Twellman on the Apple broadcast that he wanted to try to press Cincinnati and to press them as high as possible. Now, Miami didn't really press as high as possible, but maybe for Miami they did. The Miami scale is different.
To scale, right? Yeah.
To scale, they pressed, and they forced a bunch of high turnovers in the first 20 minutes and scored a goal on the back of that press. I don't know, man. I think Mascherano deserves credit. He's been massaging egos all year long. That's part of the Miami job, is that your job primarily is to make sure that everybody's playing nice. And he seems to have done that successfully enough. Other than a little spat with Ben Hakramaski over here. But he's gone now. Parma? Como? Sassuolo? He's gone.
Parma.
There we go.
Parma.
100%. So that's all been fine all year long. And now, when it comes time for the postseason, and Miami certainly seem to be caring about these games in a way that they haven't cared about any other MLS game this year. Now Mascherano's making big decisions. His team's defensive structure in this game I thought was really good. The performance from the team was really good. Miami look scary. They look scarier now than they ever have since their new era began in the summer of 2023. This team looks better than the one that set the points record last year. They just worked Cincinnati. They absolutely demolished them in this game. One of the best performances of any team all season long. I'm really impressed by this group right now.
There's this guy, Lionel Messi. I'm not sure if you all are familiar. Hat trick of assists and a goal. That's not bad. Allende with a brace. Silvetti with a goal. I think when your entire front three scores and gets assists and just looks like they are fluid and unstoppable, that has to make you feel slightly better about leaving out your veteran striker that probably wasn't thrilled, but I don't know, probably enjoyed getting to drink some more mate on the sidelines and give his knees a rest.
And who wouldn't, by the way, in the best seat in the house? People forget that's like a really good vantage point to watch a game is from the bench. Yeah. We always talk about the bench like it's this bad place to be. You don't even have to pay for that seat. You know what Johnny Infantino would charge you for that seat if he could price these games?
Billions.
It's unreal. What a bargain. There you go. Here's your way to hack the system. Make an MLS team, and then you can get the best seats in the house. No, I think, look, with the Lionel Messi stuff, I think it makes a ton of sense that he's maybe enjoyed playing with a little bit more of his preferred element around him. Like with Suarez, we've talked throughout the year that they don't have the mobility, right? And when they would get to a chance where Miami would force a turnover, spray it over the back, and you had Suarez and Messi running into space, like defenses were consistently nullifying that before it reached the box. Like it was not going to work because they just don't have the legs for it. It's not their fault. And in possession, what you would also see is that they kind of drifted into similar zones because instinctually they're two of the finest goal scorers of their generation. It's just what they do. They want to get into these sort of subtle areas. And sometimes they're really good at choreographing, you go there, I go there. But other times it was getting congested, passing lanes were getting complicated. Maybe even like Messi didn't have the ball to Suarez he wanted because Suarez was in too close of proximity and maybe not nimble enough to be able to get to the next spot quickly beyond the center back where you play a through ball in short distance. What you're seeing when it's Silvetti and Allende is that there's yes, the defensive pressing around him, which will always help Lionel Messi because he's conserving his energy for the stuff that he's done better than any mortal man in the history of the species, right? But I think that you also get into in attack, you're creating more space for him. You're drifting into different zones where maybe he has more authority over that central channel, and he can play either. In this game, he actually is the most advanced. I think that people are always so tempted to say Messi played as a false nine anytime he lines up as a striker. He was actually playing as like an advanced forward this time. But he can also do the false nine thing, of course, and drop deep a little bit and collect and get a little closer to midfield and then scamper when there's no one in his space, where he is able to either, kind of converge and force the issue going forward in the central channel, or spray it off wide like he does for the opening goal, send it out wide like he's playing his accordion. That's something I wrote last year. And then immediately get the cross back for Cincinnati. You might want to hear this. An unmarked header from like 6 or 7 yards out from Lionel Messi. Like, Cincinnati was a team that was supposed to be built on defending. And they got beaten by Lionel Messi unmarked header, 7 yards. Like, it's just, these are the sorts of things you can't really do, I don't think, as well if Luis Suarez is on the field. And that's why I think Luis Suarez makes sense to stay as the first guy. Maybe earlier out the bench is what I'm thinking, though, is like you're going to need him probably, maybe not even in this next round when you look at the matchup. We'll get there. But, yeah, I don't know. I just think it flows a lot better with Luis Suarez out of the lineup here.
It flows fine enough, ultimately. Like, I think Miami can win these games. I think they can win MLS Cup with Suarez in the lineup or not in the lineup. Messi is averaging a goal contribution every 32 minutes in the playoffs. So it doesn't really matter who you put around him in the attack. And really the benefit, it seems to be, is coming on the defensive side for Miami. Although it's not just you take Suarez out of the team and now we're defending better. Because Miami also defended pretty darn well with Suarez in the lineup to begin this series. They're defending right now, guys, at a level that we've never seen Miami defend since Messi arrived. So I'm going to drop a couple of stats on you. For the first time since Messi arrived in MLS play, Inter Miami have allowed less than a single expected goal in 3 of their last 4 games. In those same 3 games, that's the 2 wins over Nashville, so not including the loss, and the win over Cincinnati, Miami also forced their opponents into the longest average shots of the season, according to FBref's data. They're playing legitimately good, effective, well-rounded defensive ball right now. Jeff, you had that piece for The Athletic about Jordi Alba's walkabout defending after that game against Minnesota United, right? And we talked about that on the show. The contrast between Alba in that game and basically the whole season, and Alba actually locking in and defending Ender Echenike, Taylor, there we go, now I brought you back in,
Thank you.
Against Cincinnati in this game, and locking him down 1v1 could not be starker. This is a Miami team that is actually trying defensively in a way that I don't think they've ever tried before. It's not just Alba, who is paying better attention, not perfect attention. He's still got a walkabout in this game, but better attention. It's Alba. It's Rodrigo de Paul tracking back in transition. And it's Messi. It's Messi, too. Messi posted a tackle in Miami's defensive third for just the 7th time in his MLS career against Cincinnati. He registered a season-high 4 tackles in that series-deciding win over Nashville. The dude is actually trying. Like, this Miami team has flipped the switch. It is blindingly obvious to me that they flipped the switch. And this is a Miami team that is attacking right now at a level we've never seen an MLS team attack before. This is a Miami team that even before Messi went supernova in the playoffs was already second in goals scored per game in American Soccer Analysis database, 3rd in XG per game in that same database. This might be the best MLS team that we've ever seen, that we're watching right now. This might be the greatest MLS team that has ever taken the field, not 2025 Miami, but November 25th, all right, whenever that game was, November 23rd, whatever. This specific moment in time, this slice of Inter Miami, I do not think we've ever seen a team with this much attacking firepower. Ice cold take. Obviously, we have not. Messi plays for this team. I don't think we've seen a team balance even close to this level of attacking firepower with legitimately good defensive performances. Miami's ceiling has always been higher than any team that MLS has ever seen. We know that. It's obvious. Miami's floor now is way higher than it has literally ever been. All that to say, I'm feeling very good about my MLS Cup to Miami prediction. This team is playing unbelievable ball and absolutely smoked Cincinnati in this game.
I still am curious what happens if a team scores first or doesn't let them score in the first 35 minutes or so. That was the knock against them earlier in the season. It has not happened in the playoffs.
Minutes,
but yeah, I think the last time a team scored first was Nashville when they won. And before that,
penalty,
I think it was
weird game.
And then it was Chicago in the regular season. I think it's the last time the opposition scored first. Chicago won that game 5-3. So who knows? But it still does feel like Inter Miami have figured some things out and are definitely looking very strong. But we thought the same thing about Philadelphia, and then NYCFC came to town. Should we take a moment to talk the Cincinnati Fighting Garys?
Let's. Yeah, and I also want to shout out, that's a great point, Taylor, because there have been, I think, 17 times that Inter Miami have trailed in MLS play, and they've only won 4 times, and they've drawn 5, which means that they could get to a shootout, right? So it is like kind of a coin flip's odds if they don't score first.
Surely, though. Sorry to interject. I know I do want to talk Cincy more than I want to, I guess, dive deeper into this, I suppose, because we kind of already did it. But surely that's not that out of place with other teams when they fall behind,
no.
right? I mean,
it wouldn't be. But that's the point, right?
It drives me batty when you see on broadcast, well, this team is 1 win, 1 draw, and 12 losses when they're trailing by 2 goals. Yeah, because you don't score goals in soccer. And so when you're down, you probably are going to lose. So anyway,
right.
I don't know if that actually is proportionate to the ratio across every team in MLS, but it's
probably a little better, right? But it is still like
so.
A reminder that half the time they might in fact still lose. And that's a better vantage point than, hey, if they score first, we can totally come back against Inter Miami, right? Like, that's just not going to happen in the same way. So just saying for future teams, try scoring first. You'd never
It might be worth a shot.
Happen.
Scoring in soccer and not conceding would be worth a try, I think.
Cincinnati did not try that. And that's where it gets complicated. I mean, like, look, they did try, I guess. Like, they took as many shots as Miami. Like, I see the numbers, right? But, like, I think what gets difficult here is we spent the season... Throughout the season, we've talked about Cincinnati as a defensive team, right? And then we talked about this ideology of Matt Miazga, who hasn't played since mid-September. Miles Robinson, Teenage Debbie, Nick Hagland, the boys. They can all rotate in. There's going to be a couple of them who are going to be injured at any given time, but no matter who's in that back 3, they're going to be able to make it work because they have such good defensive stability. Last year, what you saw, and the year before as well, is that they also had really, really good midfield play in front of them that was led by Obi Naboro, and he was hurt for the majority of the season. And I don't think anyone really came in and was doing that work. I think Pavel Buka started again in this game, and Samuel Getty also, who they brought in this season, if I remember. It was he new this year. Yeah. So you have a couple of players who... We're getting those minutes, but they weren't as effective. I don't think that they were necessarily mitigating the number of chances that defense had to face, and I think that generally the more overworked a defense will be, eventually it's going to backfire. Shout out Minnesota United. So when you look at the midfield block, you also didn't really have that same sort of like wing back sort of thing that you've seen in the past, where it would have been Luca Rajano, or before that Yamil Assad, I think, had a really good kind of career resurgence as a wing back. There are a couple of other players I'm blanking on right now who've done this trick, but that mid block of Cincinnati never got to the level of the defensive level and then the attacking level that they invested mightily in this year with Evander and Kevin Denke. And in this game, you get to a case where Evander and Denke are pretty capably neutralized to scale. Evander still takes his 5 shots, but they aren't able to be as effective as they would like to be. And you don't really have the same host of alternative routes to get back into the game. They really struggled when they couldn't get to their focal points. When they couldn't do their favorite thing, Cincinnati wasn't able to get the results. And I think that as they look at this offseason, it's got to be thinking, how do we interject a little less predictability into this? Because I think right now opponents really know what they're coming up against when the Fighting Garys come to town or when they're going to Cincinnati.
Yeah, totally agree. I think there's probably more work that needs to be done in this team than you would think of a team that won as many games in 2025 as Cincinnati did, right? I mean,
I agree.
It's a bit concerning that Evander didn't show up in this match. It's a bit concerning that Denke got bullied by Noah Allen, who is several inches shorter, and you'd have to imagine at least a dozen pounds lighter. I'm worried about that if I'm Cincinnati. I am worried that our midfield can't progress play. Really, you want to get healthy. I think that's a big part of this. And I do think the Cincinnati team still has a lot of really good pieces, but maybe there's a little bit more to do than Chris Albright or Pat Noonan were hoping needed to be done in this offseason. I'm super curious what Cincinnati is going to look like next year. The East is really good. It's not going to change. It's going to be really good again next year. If Cincinnati play like this and play like they did with so many tight games again in 2026, they will not be as successful. It's that simple.
Joe, if you had to take a guess, do you feel like you have a better read on what Cincinnati looks like next year, or how the game between NYCFC and Inter Miami will play out?
I'd like to think I have a better read on the NYCFC Miami game, but my track record with NYCFC is not very good.
Should we talk about it?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Why not?
So, I found this game strangely captivating. I'm going to assume neutrals probably did not, because it was kind of frustrating at the same time. Philly go the goal down, and then it felt like kind of start to panic from the 60th minute on in recognizing the pressure is there. the season has been such a huge success until this point. We can't go out like this. And then they did go out like this. And Matt Freese stands on his head on a few occasions, or I guess sprawls on his side on a few occasions.
Yeah, that's more fitting.
And so it's not as though they don't create anything, but I was pretty surprised that the Union, I felt like to some extent, the panic and the anxiety over the result colored their ability to fight back into this one. But you all know much more than I do about both of these teams and the way they play. So I welcome your thoughts and opening observations.
I think that the way that you frame that of being after the 60th, I think there's evidence of that. And I think that you see it with one of the plays of the postseason that I think unfortunately is going to be like forgotten because it didn't change the result. So I want to talk about Andre Blake's save. His literal season-ending save, where he tracks back. There's this perfectly placed curling shot that it's one of those where, like, at first it leaves his foot and it's like, okay, that's out of bounds for a goal kick, no problem. Then it starts to hook and you're like, oh no. Everyone in the stadium is watching and just like, this is the season. It's done. Andre Blake, at this point, 3-time goalkeeper of the year, one of the best goalkeepers in MLS history, first overall pick for Philadelphia Union, 35 years old. He doesn't have the mobility, and this has been the story of the last couple of years. Has been sometimes he's in and out of the lineup with injuries, sometimes he's not able to track back like he used to, so they've modified the defensive approach where he doesn't have to converge as far out. He has to. They're down a goal. He tracks back. He's able to get to it. He dives. He swats it out of bounds. He pulls a hamstring. And I think in that moment, it's like, here's your captain. Here's your most important player. And now you've got to justify him pulling his hamstring and score. And I think it took what was already, for this group, already we're at a deficit and we need to save our season, into we better do it because we have to do it for him now. And he gave his all and we have to as well. Where I think in a game model where you're not a ball-playing team, you're forcing maybe even less sensible plays, attempts, decisions. And it just like, it looked desperate. And it looked like a team that was like you've seen that really heartbreaking video of the raccoon bringing cotton candy and it sets it down into a river and then it completely disappears and then it's scrambling in the water looking for the cotton candy and it's gone.
Now my heart is broken for that raccoon.
Yeah, now I'm literally
crying
myself to sleep tonight.
It haunts me. It's like one of the saddest things I've ever seen. And now you all will be looking it up and your day's going to get worse and I'm sorry. But like it's that same sort of feeling of just kind of like we had it. We knew what we had this year. We knew that we had a game model that was really difficult for a lot of MLS to get through, and we were confident bringing it into the playoffs that this was going to work, and we just don't know how to harness it and turn it into something productive. I don't know. I mean, like, it was just, I think after that injury and after that sequence, like, Philly just kind of didn't have the coherence to get themselves back into it in the way they needed to. And yes, also, to your point, Matt Freese, really good game. Starting to look more and more like he's a viable, like he's the guy for 26, right? And this is another one of those performances that's going to add credence.
I think it's easy to paint this as Philly choking at the last hurdle. There's a lot of tactical discourse about the game model that's popped up yet again, which I think there's some interesting stuff in there. Philly didn't finish their chances. Ty Baribo has a great chance.
Question. Is that a euphemism for Red Bull soccer?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay,
very much so.
Okay. So
I've shared my opinion on this before, which remains unchanged, despite a lot of talk about it. I mean,
I'm just spinning in my chair here, guys.
The take that I am fighting back against, that Jeff would subscribe to, many others would as well, that I very much respect. The people, not the take. I disagree with the take. The take is that like Red Bull soccer.
I don't respect either one of them. So
there you go. Well, that's the way to be. Watch your raccoon video, Taylor. Come on.
All right, my bad.
The take is that Red Bull soccer, high press, vertical passing. Not a lot of patience and possession, can't succeed in the playoffs, which fundamentally I just disagree with. The take I can get on board with, and Andrew in the Discord was talking about this, the language that I can get on board with is that tactical flexibility can be a good thing, or is often a good thing.
Yes.
That I agree with. But the whole Red Bull soccer can't cut it in the playoffs. Fundamentally, I just think that's a flawed piece of logic. I mean, think about the teams that play like the Philadelphia Union. I guess I'm going to do my whole thing. I promise that I want to talk about NYC FC.
I'll do the whole thing
just to empty the tank on Philly.
Yep.
The sample of teams that play true Red Bull soccer is tiny, right? It's super small. I went back through and looked, and if you use it's arbitrary. I apologize for that, but basically, if you look at teams that have high average line of confrontations, I did 44 yards according to AS.
Sure.
It just is what it is, and that they force teams to play a lot of vertical passes. if you look at the sample size of teams that fit rough data parameters, again, arbitrary, but I'm getting somewhere, then only 6% of MLS teams, roughly since 2021, so just looking at the last 5 seasons, fit those criteria. Like, they're extreme, right? That's part of the whole point here. 50% of those teams have been very good playoff teams. 50% of these teams. So I went back through the last 5 years. Philadelphia in 2021 played this way. They were one win from MLS Cup. Their team had been ravaged by COVID. They lost to NYC FC. NYC FC went on to win MLS Cup.
Tough
That's a great team.
That was a real
they had half a foot in
final.
MLS Cup. And you got some Red Bull teams, you got some DC United teams. You have the Red Bulls in 2024 who didn't play traditional Red Bull soccer, but they fit the data criteria. So they were pressing high, especially towards the end of the season, and they were playing vertical passes. Then you have 2024 DC, LOL. 2 of these teams are DC United, so we can just chuck those out because it's not a stylistic thing. And then you have 2025 Philly, who played a decent game in the conference semifinals and couldn't get the job done. They lost their goalkeeper. They lost their best central playmaker before the playoffs started. I know they're going against a team that lost even more, so I shouldn't have gone down that road. But basically, a huge chunk of the teams that play this way do great in the playoffs. I just don't agree with that line that you can't win in the postseason playing this way. I think that is just not true. I do think that the Union would be better served if they could have a little bit more to their approach. I do think that's true. I think that's true of Minnesota United also. I think that's true of LAFC also. That is true of basically if San Diego had lost, and we'll talk about them later, San Diego had lost, we'd be talking, well, should they be a bit more pragmatic? Should they be more defensive? There's always should this team be this? And I think it is a lightning rod, these teams that play Red Bull soccer. I think it's a lightning rod. I think it's bad logic, frankly. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong. I do want to credit. Can we credit?
You haven't been proven wrong. I mean, you haven't been proven right yet. Sorry. Like, unfortunately, here's the thing, man. Like, I get it, but let's go through some of these examples. Okay, 24 Red Bulls, the least energy drink they've been this decade.
It's true, for sure.
So like, you have to keep in mind, you're also comparing it to past precedent. And like, maybe they're not doing the vertical passing. I like the stats that you use to kind of like filter this out. And I think that 6% anecdotally feels right. You're only looking at 1 or 2 teams per season that are actually like committing to the bit in this way. And 2% of a 30-team league is 6%. So like, that makes sense. But I think that when you also look at these teams, when I'm thinking of these teams, I'm thinking of, yes, every Red Bulls team from like Jesse Marsh taking over for Mike Petke in 2015 all the way through, let's say, 22 or whatever. Right. And if I remember right, that was the year that Carnell took them to the promised land, and then Gerhard Struber decided that they were done in the first round to start his playoff career, right? Or to start his career in the playoffs. When you look at those teams, when you look at Carnell's St. Louis team, when you look at Carnell's Philly team, you also do have a unifying factor of these are teams that don't have MLS game breakers. These are teams that do not have players that other teams fear individual matchups with. These are collectives. The collectivism is really effective against teams that also are less structured, right? And so you look at it in the regular season. This is why they win shields, a lot of shields and conferences and these sorts of things, because it's a really good 34-game structure. So they do win titles. They win the shield, and that's a trophy, that's a title, right? So, but when you get into these sort of like elimination thing, this is where Andrew's point in the Discord about you need the versatility. A lot of these teams don't have a second look. Even when you look at the Red Bulls last year, like Emil Forsberg put up some good counting stats and whatever, but it was Lewis Morgan who was really like leading the attack throughout the playoffs, and he was doing it in a very gegenpressy sort of way, right? And when you look at this team, once Quinn Sullivan went down, they didn't really have that player. And he was doing it in the model, but he was also doing it in a way that no other player on this squad, certainly thereafter, was doing. And so they didn't have that second look to be able to get through it. I think that you also look at it and say that these are teams that are built... it's just built in a way where you're going to struggle once you get to teams that really know what they're doing, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. And so when you don't have that alternative look, you're going to struggle. You're going to come up against these sorts of walls where if they've been game planning appropriately and saying, yeah, they're going to trigger here and there, and then they're going to try to play it this way, and they're going to force us to play this ball, don't take the bait this time, but take the bait that time, right? It's going to be like less... If they've actually studied, and New York City had 2.5 weeks because of the international break, where they could study this matchup for 2 weeks or whatever, yeah, eventually you're going to get found out. And this is like the hurdle where it makes a lot of sense for them to, because I think that this is going to be another team that's really willing to just do what Atlanta did to Miami last year and tailor their entire tactic due to talent deficit maybe, or in this case, maybe absences more so in their midfield with New York City. They didn't really have their first choice midfield that they would have wanted. So they were more willing to say, you know what, let's just play anti-Philly ball in this game. Yeah. And it worked.
Yeah.
And that's what it kind of came down to here.
And credit to NYC FC, right? I think the tactical stuff is a fascinating argument. Like, I have so much more that I think and want to say about this, but we just don't have time.
When's the next international break? Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. I will hear, Jeff, so you haven't been proven right in my nightmares for the next year and a half. It's a great line. I think NYCFC played a good game. Like, credit to them. They absolutely deserve credit more than we've given them so far. I could have had 100 guesses, maybe 10, 15. I don't know. I could have had a lot of guesses, and I would not have been able to guess Pascal Janssen's lineup for this game. Moving Kevin O'Toole into the double pivot next to Johnny Shore was wild, and Kevin O'Toole was abysmal on the ball, like truly so bad. But the dude was throwing punches, man. Like, he was an adult defensively, and that was his job. I say with absolute certainty. His job in this game was to muck things up. And oh boy, did he do that. NYCFC did that. They were very willing to play ugly, to play anti-Philly ball. Jeff, I love that. And the goal they scored is absolute class. Like, if they're going to beat Miami, which I don't think they will, but if they're going to beat Miami, they need to play this game again. They need to play Matt Freese stands on his head game. They need to play, we're trying to go and hunt down every loose ball in midfield and outmuscle you, which they can do against Miami because they just did it against Philly. And they need to be incredibly incisive in transition. So to credit NYCFC, something they've been great at in the postseason and great at all year long under Pascal Janssen, is they've been a great fast break team. They finished 5th in the regular season in fast break XG per game. They finished, they're first right now per game in the postseason in terms of expected goals scored in attacking transition. They are scary in that phase of play. Even without Alonso Martinez in this game, they were scary. That third man run from Maxi Morales. If I'm hearing Jeff in my nightmares, Philly are seeing that in their nightmares. I mean, that is sublime work from NYCFC in quick transition. They have to do this again. And I think part of the reason why probably we will have spent the least time talking about NYCFC of any of these teams today is because none of us think they can do it. Ultimately, like, I don't think they can do it. Jeff, you don't think they can do it. Taylor, I don't know if you think they can do it or not.
I have a prediction.
Please share your prediction.
I think it's either Inter Miami win this game like very comfortably, like by 3 goals or more, or NYCFC win it in a like nail biter penalty shootout, scoring a ridiculous goal in like the 89th minute. Because every season I feel like we get the one team that just should be dead, and then they keep living, and it feels like maybe that's NYCFC this season. So Inter Miami would be the team to prove that against. But I think that could very well be the game that is like one step too far and they get smashed. Or they could just be Michael Myers, and we thought they were on fire and shot and stabbed, and yet here they are again for the 4th time.
And to be fair, I think a lot of us assumed this was that hurdle, right? Like, I think Joe and I both made our very specific predictions with Phillies winning this in 90 in mind, right? So I think it was win by 2 and win in 90, and then Joe's was 2+, right? Yeah.
Philly win by 2, game over in 90 was yours. Yeah.
Yeah.
Game was over in 90, guys. The game was over in 90.
And it was,
half point,
right?
Please.
It's my half point.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say.
I'll take it. That's fine. I'll take 2 half points for 1 point.
All right. Let's talk about our final game after the break. We'll be back to talk San Diego's victory very shortly. Welcome back, everybody. One game still to get to. San Diego's 1-0 win over Minnesota United, courtesy of a howitzer laser cannon thunder bastard from Anders Dreyer.
Yeah.
He hit that ball hard. Once again, I continue to love the fireworks as soon as the ball hits the back of the net. That is a wonderful way to signify the goal for San Diego. And a good result, if not an aesthetically pleasing game, Joe Lowry. Your opening thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this game was dreadful. But we kind of knew that it was going to be, right? I mean, Minnesota were going to play the most extreme version of what they do, which is to sit in a low 5-4-1 block, never have possession, attack in transition, and attack on set pieces. That's exactly what they did. And San Diego were going to go to their extreme, which is to control the ball entirely and to try to break you down with 1,000 passes. And eventually, they're able to do that. I mean, Minnesota had a couple of looks. They have that Robin Lod chance that's cleared off the line by Ian Pilcher. They have the Kelvin Yeboah sneaks in behind and forces a good claim from backup goalkeeper Pablo Cisniega. But really, San Diego, I think, did enough in this game to deservedly win in advance. They created just enough. Their defensive play was strong enough, coupled between their possession work and Manu Dua, I think, having a really nice game defensively. We haven't talked a ton about Manu Dua, all things considered, this year, but number 1 pick in the Super Draft this past year. Yeah. Transition from a 6 to a center back for San Diego, basically was not anywhere near the field to start the season and has now become an every game starter for them. He is going to make San Diego a ton of money. He is going to I think, help Ghana win some big games on the international level as well. He is an amazing young center back. The one area in this game where I thought he lacked was actually on that Robin Lod chance where he doesn't quite slow his momentum enough to defend Lod quite right 1v1. But Dua was everything for this team in defensive transition. Like his ability to sweep up in behind the back line. He's such an incredible athlete. He's silky, he's fluid, and he's fast. And then he's also good on the ball. He checks just about every box beyond a little bit of polishing that still needs to be done in his game. I thought that Manu Dua was so good in this game was crucial for San Diego, and also that he's probably the first player I go to tells you that this game was not a spectacle, but it was enough. For San Diego, it was enough.
Jeff, do you want to do some eulogizing for Minnesota before we move to what next for San Diego?
Yeah, we'll call this the old morning loon that I used to do when I was on the beat, the Mouring. Nice. Yeah, no, it was every year. It worked really well. It was one of those where it's like I was always way more satisfied to put it out there than anyone was satisfied to see it out there.
Those are the best, though, you know? Those are the best.
I know. It was for me. That was the one for me. Look, I mean, like, there was a point to follow up on Dua and lead it into Minnesota that Max Bretos really picked up on perfectly in the broadcast. It was about the 60th minute. Kelvin Yeboah just stops chasing balls behind the back because Manu Dua had gotten the first 5 or 6 attempts, and Yeboah was obviously coming off an injury and was just kind of like, yeah, I can't get that one. But Minnesota had to keep rolling him out there. There was no backup striker. They didn't have a single backup striker in their model for the rest of the season once they sold Tani Oluwaseyi. And this goes back to what I said on this show right after the window closed, where I said it was the worst window in MLS because I had never seen a team that was so firmly in title contention decide that the transfer market was more important than trophies.
RSL
and maximizing values.
Last year, same boat.
RSL wasn't contending for trophies in the same way, though.
I disagree, but it doesn't detract from your point. Your point is still valid. Just I would.
Here's where I'd argue. I think that people were finally, once they beat Inter Miami, people started to look at Minnesota as a team that can maybe actually be effective against the best teams in Major League Soccer in a way that I don't think we ever got to with Pablo Mastroeni's RSL last year. I think that they were that this is the dark horse. I'm trying to think of a good parallel for this here, but it felt like there were other teams in the Western Conference that were better than RSL.
That's true.
And it felt like this year, the West, as we talked about, it took some time for teams to really get themselves. It took Sung Hyung Min and Thomas Muller to really kind of have confidence, especially in LAFC side of this thing, Seattle, whatever. All I'm saying is that like Minnesota looked higher up in the balance of power or the likelihood to make it.
What you're saying,
MLS
Jeff,
Cup.
is because Minnesota had a specialized one-dimensional tactical style that worked against the best teams in the regular season.
We are getting there. You're right.
They could be an MLS Cup there. No, I'm just playing. But
no, but kind of. They learned the same lesson Philly did. But I think the thing was, Oluwaseyi actually did allow them to do the second thing.
Fair enough.
Much better than Yeboah did. I think that over time it became clear Oluwaseyi was kind of like the ideal prototypical forward for Ramsey Ball. And then he's gone. Yeboah wasn't quite doing all that thing to the point where Yeboah wasn't even starting some games when both were healthy. And that wasn't just like because it's a 45-minute changeover sort of thing. Minnesota had a very different close to its first window, its primary window, where it brought in Julian Gressel like on the last day, and that kind of made it look like they wanted to build in even more of a possession model, right? And you don't bring in Julian Gressel to do ugly person stuff, right? When you look at the teams that have brought him in since he left Atlanta, really, they didn't bring in anything else like that in the summer, but instead what they did is they sold their most important attacker. They didn't replace him with any attacker who could contribute in the playoff levels. Like, again, like Dieng, I think, who they brought in from Hartford, maybe in the future, right? But it just was never going to happen right away for him. And Yeboah isn't enough of an attacking dynamo where he can be the guy who's going to change games, much like I was talking about with Philly in the last segment. They just didn't have that guy anymore who's going to be able to unpick that lock. Like Joaquin Pereira in a withdrawn midfield role is not going to have that freedom. Robin Lod at this stage of career isn't that guy anymore. Like this team could have used a Darwin Quintero, like someone like that who just has that unpredictability. And so like I'm not even saying they need an MVP candidate, but Darwin went 10-10, right? And I think that when you look at it, Minnesota just didn't have that guy. They never brought in that guy. Dominic Fitz came in off the bench late in the game, and it was just kind of this like reminder of like, oh yeah, he was the guy that they brought in besides Nectarios Triantis, who was supposed to be the summer acquisition. And here he is coming with 6 minutes left. Triantis has been excellent, right? And he helped with the possession model. Again, he was another one where he can keep the ball in midfield. It looked like they were trying to build towards something else, and then there was no other move to try to do that sort of thing. Yeah. I don't know what their title window looks like anymore. I think that they kind of missed their trophy window. I think this was their year. The U.S. Open Cup was their trophy. MLS Cup was always a long shot, right? And I'm not saying their trophy like they had it. It was their best pathway to get a trophy since joining Major League Soccer, and they punted on it. And then the playoffs, they were undermanned. San Diego had Anders Dreyer. They had no Lancer. Yeah. And sometimes it is as simple as that, right? And I think that for Minnesota now, you've got to look and you've got to say ownership maybe needs to spend more to get that sort of piece in. The sporting staff maybe needs to, I don't know, restrain themselves a little bit and recognize that guys 5 through 18 on a squad maybe play a crucial role in teams that make or break deep runs in the MLS Cup playoffs, whatever the case may be right now. This was inevitable. This looked inevitable once that summer window closed. And I think for them to fall to a team like San Diego is proof actualized that this team just wasn't ready for that.
It's a shame that Minnesota couldn't do with Tani what Charlotte did with Adilson Malanda, where they sell him in the summer and then get him loaned back for the rest of the season, right? That's what Charlotte did with Millsborough and Malanda. If Minnesota could have done that with Villarreal, Jeff, I agree. I think this season probably would have looked a little bit different. It might still have ended on this past weekend. It might still have ended
probably
yesterday.
Here. I agree. Right. But that Open Cup run. Right.
And the Open Cup run, and they'd have a better chance. I mean, right? Like, personally, I don't view the Open Cup trophy anywhere near as the same level of trophy as MLS Cup or as the Shield, right? I mean,
I agree, but it's a trophy.
In the modern version of MLS, it's a trophy, I guess, in the way that
it matters similar to me to the League's Cup, right? It's almost trivia to some groups, but I think for other groups it can be a really good sort of step towards something else.
And to be clear, I want the Open Cup to matter a lot. I want it to matter more than it does right now. But
and to be clear, I prefer it to the League's Cup. We're both scared of what we just said out loud, but I think that you're right. Like, I think that you're absolutely right. Like, ultimately, this is a league that is supposed to be built for MLS Cup and the Shield to be the predominant trophies, and then obviously CCC, it's its own sort of like continental glory, whatever.
Tani's a great player, and that they lost him midseason hurt. RSL lost Gomez last year, great player. Their season also crumbled, right? Whatever the comparison is, my big takeaway is that sure would have been nice if Minnesota could have kept him around. Am I confident I could stand in the face of ownership and say, hey, we're going to pass on this $9 million check right now because we think we have a 3% chance of winning MLS Cup?
Especially
I don't know
this
if I'm
ownership.
a bold enough man.
Yeah,
exactly. So Minnesota have some challenges there. But the nice thing is, I think this whole Minnesota story is a victory lap for the calendar change, is what I think. I mean, we're in back-to-back seasons where a team has had their season destroyed by having a Godfather offer come in, an offer that they decided they couldn't refuse for a great player, and that was it. That was it for Minnesota. The idea with the calendar change is that you're no longer going to have to lose your best players right at the end of your season. And that is going to happen. Like that will be a part of the calendar change. That will be a positive. There are other challenges for Minnesota specifically. But if they can smile about one thing, it's that they will not face this same problem again after 27.
Any thoughts on San Diego before we conclude this episode? Either praising them for the result or maybe looking ahead to Vancouver in the Western Conference Final?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good matchup here. I think that San Diego is going to enter. On the one hand, they're going to be really grateful that they didn't get to extra time, because they're going to be turning around and playing that game a little sooner than Vancouver will be, obviously, just with how the games were spaced. So the fact they were able to finish it off at 90, I think, is really crucial to make that a moot point to scale, especially with how long Vancouver had to go. Vancouver is going to have this emotional come down, probably. But I think that San Diego, they're going to really need to generate that emotional come up, like in a weird way after this game, because this was such an ugly game. And this was like Snapdragon looked awful. Like it was just one of those where it was like the game itself was not very good, but also the field made the game even worse. And then when the game was worse, the field looked worse because you're more cynical anyway, or whatever the case may be. So it just kind of fed off of itself. So like, I have no idea what they're going to do to Snapdragon to make that thing ready. Allegedly just less college football going on now, but I don't know. I think that when you look at them, this is where you see why Jeppe Tverskov was like a best 11 darling for a lot of us,
100%.
right? Like a game like this is just so crucial where it's just like you don't even really think of Minnesota getting into it. Like Minnesota can't keep 30% of the ball because Tverskov is too good at closing this passing space that would have allowed them to get those extra few percent, right? Valkyrie, they've got an interesting decision to make on loan with him. I think that maybe that's a good role where you can kind of start to evolve this thing and try to get even further. But I think San Diego, Vancouver is a very feel-good sort of like conference final. And I think it's going to be good for the West to have two teams. How the West was fun, they're saying. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think that Pellegrino, this is maybe a performance from Pellegrino where he was effective, but maybe not. Maybe this is where you can get Chucky Lozano back into the lineup and there's no hard feelings about it because Pellegrino wasn't able to, be that sort of element of surprise that you and I both expected him to be in this game. So maybe that also helps with the Chucky problem if his muscles are ready to go and he's able to play 60-plus minutes or whatever, it should be a really good game. I think it'll be a very, very good conference final, and I think that San Diego, Mike Averas, Tyler Heaps, everyone involved in this operation deserves a ton of credit for being able to get this team to a level of sophistication and dependability that we've never seen with an expansion team before. Truly admirable.
All right, gentlemen. Well, nicely done. Some good praise, some good debates, some good talking points. A nice little dig from Jeff in there as well. Jeff Reuter, thank you for all of those things and more on today's episode.
I'm just going to go back and be digging up some Holes. I'm just going to play that song, actually. I'm just going to listen to the soundtrack to Holes, the movie. A family movie named Holes.
Joe, you want to top that outro?
Nope, I'm good. I thought it was a great show, guys. I had a blast. I love doing this stuff. Thanks, Taylor.
Me too. We obviously went long, but to me that's the sign of a good show because it means we had a lot to talk about and got to a lot. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, listener, and we will talk to you again very soon.